Hello everyone and welcome to Voxel Viewpoint. We have a hefty show ahead of us today in which Derrick and Ryan talk about the Monster Hunter World Iceborne beta. Leigh checks into Bloodstained Castlevania of the Night. Ryan breaks it down in Cadence of Hyrule. We all weigh in on the sinking city. And finally, we return from hell to do our replay of Doom 2016. It's July 2nd, 2019. I'm Ryan Shepard. And did you know that Lovecraft spelled backwards is Dracula? We've got a hot one today, so let's jump right into it. Derrick and I have been checking out the Iceborne DLC for Monster Hunter World. They're running a beta. I thought I'd missed the beta last weekend, but it turns out that they actually ran it for 2 weekends, which was pretty cool. Now, Derrick and I have been playing the base Monster Hunter for quite a while, and I think we're both pretty excited about this DLC expansion. What did you think of what you played of it, Derrick?
It's really nice looking so far. And having the new environment now, like where you have the snow, like being waist deep in the snow and like moving through it and like seeing like your path of snow and the physics they're using for that, was great. I was checking out one of the gun weapons. I think it was new or something.
Okay.
It was kind of fun. I was going through and doing like I just did the one hunt with the first little beast thing you could go fight. So didn't really dive like super much into it, but it's definitely got potential and will be a nice add-on to Monster Hunter World.
Yeah. So the beta kind of puts you in like you create a whole new character. It doesn't connect to your previous character at all, and you only get 3 quests. One is actually a return from the base game, which is the Great Jagras quest, and I think that's just there to get new people on board, like learn the ropes and stuff like that. And then there are 2 in the new area, which Derrick said was like the snow area. I forget what the name of the first one was, but the second one is a Tigrex, which I guess is a returning fan favorite.
Yes.
I think the first creature is a completely new creature. Is that correct?
I believe so. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah. I forget what it was too. It's basically a T-Rex with giant moose horns. And yeah, that quest was actually pretty tough. It doesn't like, so as far as I could tell, like this Iceborne DLC is going to be pretty high level stuff. There's stuff that comes with the expansion that's going to filter down into all of the content, like the grappling hook thing and stuff like that. But like this creature and the Tigrex and stuff like that, these are high level monsters, high level fights. And yeah, this thing didn't pull any punches. It does like this charge attack where it kind of like collects a whole bunch of snow and dirt and stuff and runs at you with a big ball of death. And it even grabbed a tree, like a dead tree, and its horns and its antlers and like swung it around at me and stuff like that. Yeah, it definitely tested my mettle, so to speak. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The new area looks cool, like you said, Derrick, with the snow tech, if you will. Very different,
and everything's still handling as good as it does in the regular game. So
yeah,
you know what you would expect from gameplay is still there, just because it's like a new expansion, a whole new area and stuff. You know, they've kept it on. It's still a pretty solid build of a game too.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you think of having to drink the hot drink?
I liked it because I liked that one thing like where you could make the cold drinks in the first game and go down into the heated areas. Like I thought that was a pretty cool little like mini mechanic. Like
Yeah.
as long as you remember about it, because I
Right.
ignored everything and was like, okay, I've got 160 hours in the base game. I'm just gonna go running in here, and then I was like, oh, I'm freezing.
Yeah.
Crap.
Yeah. So like, you have to drink a hot drink because it's cold. Basically, if you don't, the cold like saps your stamina regeneration. In the cold drink, each one lasts like, I don't know. It felt like 10 or 15 minutes, maybe a little bit shorter than that. So you do have to keep remembering to drink it, unless you want to have a hard time dealing with the creatures. And I thought, so I played the insect glaive pretty much exclusively, so I'm used to mounting creatures pretty frequently. But it's pretty cool to be able to do it now with the grappling hook and give every weapon an opportunity to at least get on and mount creatures a little bit more frequently. Leigh, you're looking to pick it up in the fall, right?
Yeah, I'll grab it when it kind of releases on a disc. Yeah, it's coming as a full package. Definitely jumping back in. Yeah.
Cool.
There's likely to be substantial extra content.
Yeah, it does. It seems like it's going to be a pretty big area. They're talking about like it's the biggest area that they've made and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, Leigh. Tell me about Bloodstained. What is going on with Symphony of the Bloodstained?
It finally came out, is what's going on. After,
Right.
I think it's like 4 years now. What, 5 years? 4 years? I think it's been going.
It's been a while.
Yeah. So it's come out and it kind of, it's left off really from where kind of the Igarashi, the kind of the designer, Igarashi's set of Castlevania, kind of that Metroid style going around as opposed to the fairly linear old school Castlevania, that kind of open up.
It's the lineage of where Castlevania turned into Metroidvania.
Yeah, so it's kind of taken that, and it's taken little things from me, all those sort of things. Like there was a kind of the more handheld era, which I kind of went to after Symphony of the Night. So it's like elements of Portrait of Ruin, stuff like that, walking around the levels through paintings and stuff like that. There's a lot more kind of extra missions you can do as well. You can actually go to people to pick missions up at a hub. You have a hub where all your people are, and you can craft stuff. All the things you pick up. There's a lot more heavily into crafting and stuff like that.
It's a game that came out in 2019, so it has to have crafting.
I know. I ain't saying nothing. But yeah.
So is there like a quest log? Is there like a...
Yeah. You can do the quest in any way you go, and it could be places where at the beginning, all over this place, and they're kind of go and find my husband. He got lost going to do this thing, and then fight 10 of these things to get the bird, and then you go, hey, you got something.
Okay. Is it worth?
Opens up a little more.
Is it worth going after those things? Is the rewards worthy?
Yeah, it's pretty worthy. Yeah, you get an extra weapon or extra clothes. Obviously, it's got that thing from Symphony with the keep adding your clothes and your
Okay.
Yeah,
the armor sets and stuff like that.
Yeah, so the weapons are pretty good. There's some cool extra stuff in there. It's called like little weird 8-bit things you can get going on in there. Take it back to the real old school type things. That's at least eggs. It's turned out pretty well. Yeah, I really like it. I think some people have been having issues further in with like bugs and stuff, but I've not come across those yet.
Yeah, I've heard some things like that, and like some performance issues, especially on the Switch version.
Yeah.
Have you run? What are you playing on Xbox or PlayStation?
Xbox. Yeah, I've been playing the Xbox. I'm not really running into much at all, to be honest with you. None of those sort of issues. Yeah, I like it. It's the creature designs are good and interesting. It's quite grim. and kind of that you want that got that gothic kind of Hammer horror thing you want from it.
Yeah.
Turned out quite well. I think it's kind of it's Symphony like with all kind of the dull bits, because let's be honest, there are some dull bits in Symphony of the Night.
Yeah. Okay.
Ironed out a little bit and kind of streamlined. Everything's streamlined and kind of tightened up, and the combat's nice and slick now, and it's not as maybe heavy sometimes as Symphony of the Night could be.
Is it easier to swap your armors and weapons in and out?
No, it's still as clumsy as it ever was. You still have to go in to take it off, to put another one in, to use that, to use this.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
There's no kind of... I've not got to the point where I can... they've taken away the two-hand thing, is what they have done.
Oh, okay.
Where if
so you can't have like a shield and a sword?
You can have a shield, but you can use a shield as a weapon. But it's that to and fro of kind of... Do you want to risk throwing out your weapon and using your weapon without taking a hit while you're free from it, because there's nothing else to protect you and stuff like that. Tons of different wits with different elements on it and stuff like that. But yeah, I would recommend it definitely if people are into that kind of, because it's kind of coming back. It's come back as a more of a kind of a cutesy type thing, I think, or a kind of melancholy type thing. This Metroidvania with your Oris and your Hollow Knights and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, yeah, I mean it's a pretty common thing in the indie space for them to take on, for games in general to take on this kind of formula. It's like how I joked about crafting. It seems like every game is either a roguelike or Metroidvania or some combination of the two. Which is a little
calls back to that kind of grim dark 90s type thing.
Right. And like sort of thing. So like, you know, you could see, obviously Metroid's the original, and then Symphony of the Night was the one that Castlevania'd the formula. Does it feel like it's a little worn out now that there's so many of them coming out, or does it feel fresh?
No, I think it feels fresh purely because of the setting. I think it's gone back to that cool thing. It's not doing the pixel art style of that thing, because you get the same sort of kind of that darker edge with something like a Dead Cells, don't you? Kind of the more kind of moody edge. But it freshens it up with the graphical style and stuff like that, so it doesn't feel like it's trying to be that throwback. It feels more of a modern platformer. So,
okay.
Belmont-tastic.
Oh wow, really? Are there any? What's the main character's name?
Lilith, I think.
Lilith?
I think something like Lilith. Yeah, I'm sure it's something like Lilith. I can't remember.
So what's Lilith spelled backwards?
Hitlil. Hitlil. Oh.
Ooh, what does that mean? What is this?
Steady on.
Yeah.
Steady on. Should we move on?
Actually, I wanted to talk really quick about how it was a Kickstarter, which, you know, this is usually when Kickstarter games are in the news, it's either they've just launched or they've failed miserably. So it's nice to have one that's succeeded, because it's, you know, this game's getting good reviews. It's been definitely received well from fans. And you said about, you know, how it was like took so long to make, and I feel like in the case of Kickstarter games, we kind of get this glimpse into how long it actually takes to make video games. Because like with a normal game that would be, say, like announced on E3 a couple of weeks ago, those games have been in development already for several years, maybe even, and so we don't get the whole like extended schedule. Whereas with a game like a Kickstarter game like this, we know about it before it's even been started to be created. So like with a lot of these Kickstarter games where we look at it and be like, wow, that took forever to make, it's like, oh, maybe that's actually how long games take to make. And I guess, I mean, you can see the result here. It pays off in the end, I guess. I'm just looking to hopefully they iron out some of the performance things on the Switch, because that's the version that I want to pick up eventually.
Yeah, it would be a no-brainer on the Switch. I think it's definitely that on the go type thing.
Yeah,
but,
and I like the side scrollers on the Switch too.
Yeah, that's where I want to get it when I pick it up.
Yeah, but as you were saying about the Kickstarter thing and like the bad stories of the Kickstarter, it's interesting to notice that this was from the time when when the Superstar kind of ex-Capcoms and Konami people were going off on their own.
Yeah.
And this was around the same time as Mighty Number 9. It was the same sort of Kickstarter period.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show you maybe it's better to hang on. Because look at the shit show that was compared to... They're both the same level of people.
Yeah.
With the same sort of clout to get the other developers in that they want to, but...
Yeah, it can go either way for sure. I think Mighty Number 9 was before this, though, if I remember correctly. So I think they had about the same amount of time in the oven, so to speak.
Oh wow, I thought it was the same time. Oh, my bad.
I don't think so. I remember this coming, like this one coming off at least sometime after the Mighty Number 9 thing. So I think, luckily it didn't come out, they didn't launch it after Mighty Number 9 came out, because people would be like, hey, look what happened to the last one.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's good. I'm glad that ended up being a decent game.
A banger, as they say.
Yeah. Speaking of decent games, I finished up Cadence of Hyrule, Crypt of the NecroDancer, featuring The Legend of Zelda.
Is that actually what it's called?
That is the full name of this game.
Sounds like a goth album.
Yeah. Actually, it sounds like a follow-up to a Castlevania game. Cadence of Belmont.
Belmont's Dawn.
Yeah, I finished that up over the weekend, and that is a really, really, really good game. It's just as much of a legitimate Legend of Zelda game as it is a Crypt of the NecroDancer game, which, if you're not familiar with Crypt of the NecroDancer, this is a game that was a more in line of a roguelike. This is a little bit of a roguelike, but it's not quite as intense, let's say, in its rogue mechanics. But so Crypt of the NecroDancer is this game where the combat is all based around rhythm. So you can only move in accordance with the beat of whatever song is playing at the time. And there's a little on-screen indicator about that shows you where your beat is, but you really don't want to be paying attention to that too much. You want to get in the groove, so to speak, with listening to the music and stuff like that. And so you hop around on these tiles in the world, and you don't even really attack. You move your character into an enemy in order to attack it. Again, on the beat. And all the enemies are also moving in a set pattern in accordance with the beat as well. So, basically once the screen starts, they'll start jumping around, and you follow their patterns, and you figure out the best way to position yourself in order to take them out. It's a very active combat system. It's kind of keeps your attention pretty much 100% of the time, more than just say a hack and slash where you're just hitting the button over and over and until the enemy dies or something like that. And this combat style is just pretty much overlaid on top of a 2D Legend of Zelda game. And and all of the music is, of course, is remixed tracks from the Legend of Zelda series. So there's like the main theme, there's the Gerudo Valley theme, there's the Lost Woods, there's, you know, Death Mountain, everything that you've heard over the years and all like different iterations in each of the Legend of Zelda games is remixed here with kind of an emphasis on the beat. Like there's more like synths added in and drums and stuff like that in order to give you a sense of when you're supposed to be moving and stuff like that. But the remixes are super excellent. Like I'd say stand pretty much on par with the actual original Nintendo tracks in most cases. And you know, it's nothing new in the sense of like what you're getting out of a Zelda game, really, because it's a pretty standard story. You know, evil comes and Link and Zelda have to team up to fight the evil back, and you know, you're going to the Desert Temple, you're going to the Death Mountain, you're going to Hyrule Castle, etc., etc. Kakariko Village is there, so that a lot of that is pretty tame when you consider it in the sense of a Zelda game. But with this combat, it like completely transforms the actual act of, you know, exploring and moving around Hyrule, stuff like that. There are little there are tons of secrets, like you're collecting heart pieces just like in Zelda, and you're going into like crypts, and there'll be little puzzles down there that you need to figure out. Sometimes you need to get special items in order to use it, so it'll mark it on your map and then let you know that you have to go back there if like there's still a treasure chest there that you need to unlock or something like that. It's just like between the, you know, I've huge Legend of Zelda fan, so between that nostalgia mixed with this like active combat, it just pulled me in and kept me going, like really from start to finish. I only put it down for, well, the Sinking City, which we'll talk about in a little while here. Otherwise I probably would have finished it even sooner. And like, it looks amazing, like the pixel art. Like I said, if this was just a hack and slash like Zelda, typical 2D Zelda is, you would look at it and you'd be like, oh, Nintendo made this. There's no like there's literally no difference there. Like in terms, like it looks like A Link to the Past or recently A Link Between Worlds, and even kind of the progression on that is similar as well. You know, it has all the normal stuff like the hook shot and the bow and the shield and stuff like that. So it checks all those boxes and then just nails it with the combat mechanics. And like when I first started playing, I was having a hard time with the beat movement in combat, because if you move off the beat, you get like a little bit of a time penalty. You basically lose a step, and that can put you at a disadvantage when you're dealing with the AI, which doesn't miss a beat. So when I first started out, I actually turned on, you can go into the settings and there's a basically turn the beat off mode if you are having trouble with the beat mechanic. And basically what that turns the game into is a turn-based action game. So when you move, nothing moves unless you move. So if you take a step forward, then all of the enemies move on their pattern. Then you take another step forward and they'll move again. So it actually transforms the game into something completely different, which is interesting. It's even, in my opinion, it's worth, if you've beat the game on the beat mode, it's worth going back and trying it the other way too, because it really does change the game up a lot. It takes like the time pressure off of it, because otherwise, if you're just standing still in the beat mode, all the enemies are still moving in accordance with the beat. So they can put you, like they can surround you and attack you because they are actively trying to attack you. But the no beat mode, like I said, they only move if you move, so it gives you a little time to breathe. But it also creates almost like a turn-based puzzle game, a little bit to figure out like, what's that?
Is that your preferred mode, do you think? No,
I ended up going back to the beat mode once I once I got the mechanics down. Once I got a feel for it. So I mean that's kind of like my suggestion is, if you're having a hard time with it, is turn that mode on. Clear some screens, get a feel for the combat and how it all works. Find a weapon maybe that you like, because there are a bunch of different kinds of weapons. And then turn it back on and see how you do. Because the when it all comes together with the beat, going on the beat and predicting where the enemy movements are and almost thinking 2 or 3 moves ahead, that's where the game really starts to come together. And like I said, it just like, it's kind of all consuming. Because you're listening to the music, you're watching the visuals, you're trying to keep tempo with the beat, and it really, it's really something special. And it's really cool that Nintendo just kind of let them do it. They gave them the license, and this isn't like a developed in conjunction with this studio. This is like this studio made this game, and it's technically a Crypt of the NecroDancer game, just with the Legend of Zelda like kind of aesthetic applied to it. So if you got a Switch and you are interested in picking it up, I would highly recommend it. It's probably going to be on my list of games of the year, that's for sure. So now we're going to tell a little bit of a different story, one that has probably been told just as many times as The Legend of Zelda, but maybe a little bit darker, a little bit damper, a little bit madder. So we played The Sinking City. All 3 of us have. I reviewed it, and Leigh has played a big chunk of it, and Derrick's kind of dipped his toe into it a little bit. This is... You know what, Leigh? I'm going to let you take this one, because you know a little bit more about the lineage than I do. And then we'll talk about what we all think of it.
Well done it. It's an investigative, semi-horror, psychological thriller detective game, with elements of almost like murdered suspect style, fantastical puzzle solving, or mystery solving, mixed with a little bit of sort of combat, I guess you could say.
Sort of combat is a good way to put it.
Yep.
It's one of those games I think you probably give a lot more goodwill if you're into the lore or the basis of the story. If you're into your Lovecraft stuff, I think that carries it a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Its commitment to an atmosphere, and a setting and a world, and the machinations and the kind of to and fro of different aspects of the people that are in the story and the people that are in the world. Mm-hmm. It's probably the best Lovecraft game since about 2000. When was Dark Comes to the Earth? The Bethesda one, 2005. but that's not saying much because a lot of them have been rubbish. It's very easy to do Lovecraft badly.
Right. Yeah, I mean, some
we
would
have
argue
one
that
written-
Lovecraft did Lovecraft badly, but we'll leave that to another day.
And fighting words, sir. I mean, yes, he was a massive racist, but he do create some good worlds.
But hey, you can't hold it against him, right?
You have to have that stipulation. You have to say, I love Lovecraft, but he was a massive racist. You have to add it on. It's like a signature at the end.
Yeah, it's like by H.P. Lovecraft, a massive racist.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anywho,
Anyway,
it's actually got a lot in common with the previous Lovecraft game, which was from Focus, which was the official game.
Yeah,
Called
that
Cthulhu,
one was
the official
literally
game,
called Call of Cthulhu, right?
which they started working on. This team that did this,
Right, so this is
started
Frogwares,
working
yeah.
on it.
And they're
Yeah.
famous for their Sherlock Holmes games, right?
Yeah, and they left the project quite about a third through, I think. And if you look at the two games, they actually start incredibly similar. They can almost be the same game. But this kind of expands on, whereas kind of that stalled at the concept of I'm an investigator in the Lovecraft universe, and kind of didn't really go very far with it. This kind of does go further with it. And it adds like elements of the madness in and stuff like that, and then the investigative reporter type, the gumshoe type thing, which is quite fitting for the 20s, 30s era that it's in. It's got elements of the Sherlock Holmes games, that with Square Enix murder suspect game, when it was Gumshoe, the ghost Gumshoe thing. It's got elements of Silent Hill. How it adds it all together, I think you would probably talk more about. Probably is debatable. I quite like it, but then I've played a lot of shonky survival horror games in my time.
Yeah.
Um,
I came away from this definitely a little underwhelmed. And it was mostly because of like the bits and pieces around it. I think the investigation mechanics are all right, and certainly for someone who hasn't played a lot of these types of games before, novel at the beginning when I first started playing it. But as I played more of it, I realized that it ended up being really repetitive and not really like it. I didn't feel like I was making these deductions myself. I felt like they were presenting me with evidence, and I was just kind of randomly putting two pieces together to see if it came to a conclusion. And I kept doing that over and over again, and that ended up kind of being the crux of the investigation stuff. It's like you go to a house, you find the clues, you get the little shreds of evidence, and then you put them together in what they call a mind palace, which I was very disappointed that it wasn't like a palace that you walked into and literally put pieces of evidence together. It's just kind of like a menu.
Yeah.
For something called a mind palace, I was expecting a little bit more.
More of a mind pinboard, I would say.
Yeah. It in fact, as soon as I went into it, I was like, am I reading that right? Is it actually palace, or does that just say place?
You need more you need more mind string to pin the mind string to the mind pictures to join to the other mind picture and the mind node.
Right. Yeah, you can, and then the whole game, I'm Charlie Day from Always Sunny in Philadelphia pointing at a board.
Yeah.
Cthulhu.
Wide-eyed. Yeah, quite.
Squid monsters.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a little underwhelming to me. The combat is just atrocious. I can't even it's just it's so unnecessary, in my opinion. Like, it didn't need to be there. They could have done something, I don't know, to make either just not have it in there at all, or do put a little bit more time into refining it a little bit. But what I did really like about it was the setting, which is nothing real super original or anything like that, but it did have a good vibe. It's this city, this New England town that's been basically flooded by natural disasters and stuff like that, and like streets are literally flooded, so you can't even walk from building to building. You have to get in a boat and boat around, and all of this stuff is supernatural. It's the old gods are causing the ruckus, so to speak, as they do. And yeah, so the setting is really good, and I was enjoying some of the story. What I really was taking away from it was the characters. Like, as we said earlier, H.P. Lovecraft is pretty famous for being a pretty big racist, and it comes up very frequently in his writing. Not in like a I hate X people or something like that, but more in like the way he portrays certain types of characters in a more positive light than they probably should be. Paints them
or
more
in a
sympathetic,
nationalistic sort of way as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and the main undertone of the story is you get off the boat and you immediately meet this guy named Throgmorton. He is an half ape, half human, but he is also a rich, influential person in the city. But he's not like self-made rich. You can tell it's like it's his legacy. Like he inherited his wealth, so his family goes back generations. He basically hires you to help find out what happened to his son, and throughout your interactions with him and other people in the town, you find out that there's this race of half fish, half human people that have basically sought refuge in Oakmont, and they are treated very poorly because they are seen as bringing with them the turmoil, the natural disasters, and the madness that is also gripping the city. So they're blamed for something that is essentially not their fault. And there's a lot of parallels there to like modern immigration and certainly immigration of the time, 1920s, 30s. And it doesn't like shy away from it. It's very on the nose, very in your face, and it doesn't see like if Lovecraft had been the one that penned this story, Throgmorton, like you said to me, Leigh, in a chat, would have been painted as a much more sympathetic character, whereas here he's shown for what he is, basically a racist, and using his power and wealth to not help these suffering people, basically, and instead using it to, fund the library and the arts in a time of like total crisis, basically. Like the city is under siege. It's like it would be considered like a national emergency, and he's taking his time and money to make sure that the library is well stocked, which doesn't help the poor. It doesn't help the people that are suffering from the madness. It just helps the people that are already in a state of well-to-do, so to speak.
Yeah.
And you can there are moments in this game where you can literally tell him to his face that he's a racist, and and you know he actually responds to it, not like in a like, well, you're an idiot or you're wrong or something like that. It actually seems like he takes it to heart. Whether or not that pans out or what the result of that is here nor there, but the game takes the kind of questionable source material and pulls out what we normally pull out from it, which is the creepy imagery, the madness, and the kind of supernatural occult stuff, but then also pulls with it the racial undertones and addresses it with a more modern approach to those kinds of issues. And that is where I ended up like really finding my interest in it, because I wanted to see where these different factions, these different groups of people clashed, and where they how you were able to kind of like manipulate that and use that to your advantage, like trying to like helping Throgmorton deal with his issues, but at the same time undermining him by not turning in the Innsmouthers that are basically committing crimes not of their own desire, but more because of the situation that they've been put into. And then that was most interesting stuff that I found out of it. It's just so much of the other stuff got in the way of a lot of my enjoyment of that. I also had a lot of performance issues, but they've corrected some of those, so I hope that they keep, putting out patches to address some of it.
I think I was a lot more warmer to it than you. I think it's more my jam. It's more my thing. And I would say that it's kind of, if you're into the genre stuff, I think it's one of the better kind of horror genre third-person type games. It's not a kind of a AAA thing that's been along in a long time, but it does come with caveats, and that is the corners that have been cut. And it's worth noting that kind of this team has always done very much investigative thrillers that are kind of very quite in a weird way linear, and they've kind of gone out on their own. They're not under the wing of Focus anymore. They've kind of gone out on their own. They've tried to please everybody. By adding all these different elements and not quite pleased everybody. And you can really see the seams. Like, for instance, character models. I've seen the same kind of 4 or 5 people with different wigs or different kind of hair pieces. I've seen the same fish man with different like kind of sideburns and stuff like that, and it's kind of you start to notice the kind of the corner they've had to cut in a very ambitious game. Ambitious for them,
right? Then that ended up being like the conclusion in my review is like, this game is incredibly ambitious in the moments where it tries to go out of their comfort zone is where it starts to show its problems the most. And there are plenty of games that are ambitious and don't nail every single aspect of it, but unfortunately with this one, for me in particular, it leaned so heavily into those things where it wasn't nailing it that it started to detract from the things that it was doing well.
Like, I mean, I was
no, go ahead, sorry.
There's that thing within the first 10 minutes you'll meet a character that's in you start your first investigation, you'll see a character in there that's kind of has seen a murder, and he's a black chap, is a African-American chap, and he's very memorable because he's one of the first characters you talk to, and you will see him dotted around as different characters throughout the thing so much that it does jar, and it does kind of really stick out. It's like, well, it's him with a different wig. It's him with a pair of glasses. The same guy again. You keep seeing him over and over. But you don't think, well, that's just cheap and nasty. You just think, oh, that's a shame. And I think that's kind of a weird kind of, it's not like frustrating. You don't end up laughing at it. You just think, oh, that's a shame. That's just taking me out of that. Yeah. And I think it's a testament to the whole atmosphere of the game that can do that and not make you laugh at it. You go, oh, you had me again, and now you've lost me because you're cutting corners.
Yeah, that's definitely like where it comes. And like in my opinion, this game didn't need to be open world either. There's so many streets that you just run down endlessly to get to your location that you need to get to. And they all look the same. They're neighborhoods and stuff like that, but for the most part, they're pretty similar looking. And then that's where you run into your issues, where you see all of these repeating NPCs, and
car layouts.
Right, yeah. You'll literally get like 3 of the exact same like rusted out car, boom, 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 right next to each other. And
then they'll be like in the middle of the street in the same spots too. Like, I just passed that pattern. Like,
yeah. Yeah. And then like it NPCs will kind of load in on top of each other and then go about their routines. And one of the things that ended up striking me the most is that you see all of this movement around you, but there's no life. Like they aren't talking to each other. There isn't even like an ambient like crowd chatter or anything like that. The only thing you hear when you're running down the street is your footsteps. There isn't even like music playing or anything like that. It's just like it really feels like at least that part of the game was taken out of like 1 or 2 generations ago and put in here. And then you get to like the character models in the cutscenes where you're talking to them and stuff, and it looks like a completely different game. Like, these are high resolution, sharp looking textures, juxtaposed with these empty streets and stuff like that. And it's just like, you can tell that part of the team had what they had to do down pat, and another part of the team was like, well, we're doing what we can. This is the first time we've tried something like this, so maybe next time we'll get it right. But this time, it is what it is, and hopefully you don't mind it too much. But yeah, I mean, it's too bad, but at the same time, I'm glad I was able to take away with it what I did. It would have been infinitely more worse if, on top of its shortcomings, it also ended up being a super racist game. If you look at it like that, it's at least trying to say something that a lot of other Lovecraft games don't always try to do. I'm curious, Derrick, you haven't played too much, but you have played the first few investigations. What are your initial thoughts on it, and has our discussion already made you regret your purchase, or are you still looking forward to it?
Okay, well, to start, I absolutely do not regret my purchase, just because I really like H.P. Lovecraft. I love the lore. I didn't get to play Call of Cthulhu, so being able to dive into this one, which kind of seemed like we were looking forward to this one a little bit more. Like I said, I played the first mission, and I was kind of like taken back by it a little bit. And then kind of like got you just kind of like worked through it, and eventually, boom, okay, I finished it. I'm not sure how I did it because of the whole Mind Palace thing and tying that together. So I restarted again, and the second time I played through, I enjoyed it a lot more because I understood what was going on, how these little mechanics were working. with world building, I like the thing where like they're like, oh, we barter here. There is no money because we are stuck here where we can't get out. There's
Yeah, the
these
dollar
natural
doesn't has
events
no
going
value.
on. Yeah, so like that was really cool, like little detail that was just like, okay, this is cool. This fits for here. And like you guys were saying too, you kind of nailed it right on. Is like when you're in doing your investigations, everything's really great. Um, but then when you're out and about in the world, it's just kind of like, okay, these are the same things. Maybe that part of the world didn't need to be as big. But on the flip side of that, something I really like is the map and being able to pin on the map and mark, okay, you come up to the spot and it's blocked off. The map doesn't show you that, but you can now mark the map and be like, okay, this is a dead end, or okay, there's danger there, or there's something you want to come back to over here. I thought that was a pretty cool little detail added into it. Whether down the line it becomes just a tedious thing you're doing now, because of like kind of how big and open the map size is. Just from looking at it, like I haven't got to go super far out into it. But it was just a cool little feature there that they had. So like, you know, they hit some things and then other things they don't hit. One of the things I'd agree with too is like when you're talking to the characters and having your like face-to-face interactions, it's awesome. Like you said, they're well detailed, the words are lining up, their expressions and movement, dealing with them is great. And then like you said, which is when you're going out running around, you're going to see the same models here and there.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'm definitely looking forward to continue on. Actually, after we're done here, I'm gonna continue on some more tonight. So I don't think I don't regret it.
Yeah.
It'll just be seeing if it doesn't become like repetitive down the line. Like I'm not
Yeah.
sure how many cases there are, but is each case going to be the same? So
Yeah.
we'll see. I'm just interested in to see what happens, and if anything, I've got that story out of it. So
Yeah. Yeah, and if I find out that they like the performance right now is okay, but it definitely has a couple of rough spots still. If I find that I hear that they completely smoothed it out or something like that, I may be tempted to go back in and try to I don't know. I keep coming back to the combat, and honestly, unless they put out a patch that says, okay, you could turn combat off if you want, it's probably going to be a hard sell for me to get me back in.
It worked for Vampire.
It did, yeah. I still haven't gone back to that yet, though, either. It was actually funny when I first started playing this. I got like this huge like sensation of like, wow, this is just like Vampire. like in terms of presentation and perceived budget and like what they were trying to do with what they had and stuff like that. It felt a lot. It felt pretty like on par. I think Vampire in general is probably a little bit more like, I don't know. I guess I'd have to go back and actually do a point-to-point comparison. But yeah, I also didn't really enjoy the combat in that. But I will say that the combat in Vampire is better than the Sinking City. It's at least more fleshed out, more responsive, and feels more like a modern game than what the combat. I can't get over the shooting in this game. I'm sorry.
I think you forgot about the shooting in Vampire as well then, because that was shit.
I did mostly melee combat in Vampire.
Oh Lord.
But it had like a whole like Dark Souls kind of combat system, so it was definitely more fleshed out than what this game has. All right. As long as we all set, or do we have any more final thoughts on the Sinking City?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
All right. In that case, we're going to jump into Hell with our replay of Doom 2016. Doom, man. To think that we'd be talking about a game like Doom in 2019 is kind of crazy. I guess we were talking about The Legend of Zelda a little while ago, so the idea of a series lasting this long is certainly not unheard of, but there was a time there where Doom was definitely not on the tip of everybody's tongue. This game came out, and like I said, the 2016 version of Doom. It's kind of like a reboot, but also still kind of had some ties back to you had the sense that what little story there is in this game, which I actually want to spend a little bit of time talking about it, even though it is kind of definitely not the focus of the game. You can tell that there's some ties back to the original lore of Doom, as it were, but not in a way that's like, hey, this is a direct sequel to Doom 2 or Doom 3 or something like that. And yeah, so I guess we can start a little bit with the story just to get that out of the way, because I think the game opens up really uniquely and kind of like with almost like the whole story is basically tongue-in-cheek, but you as the Doom Marine, the Doom guy, wake up in basically a sarcophagus, and you're like being worshipped as the deity of a cult or something like that. And right off the bat you're getting this feeling of like they are building the Doom guy up to be more than just like some guy that ends up on Mars and starts shooting demons. And as the story goes, they definitely lean into that. That proves to be true. But his like attitude toward pretty much anybody else other than himself is pretty stellar throughout the game. His interactions with Samuel Hayden, or S. Hayden, if you will, is pretty well done. Hayden is like the person that's in your ear talking to you about like what you're supposed to be doing. He's like the one that was responsible for this demon portals opening up and hell coming over into Mars and stuff like that, and he's basically trying to get you to control the demon invasion while not like minimizing the damage to all of the equipment and all of the things that he's put time and research into. I guess that's where I'll leave it for now and ask you guys what you thought of the story overall. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but just to kind of give people an idea of like the tone of this game.
The story's there. It's just that your character's not particularly interested in it.
Yes.
Everybody else is much more interested in your in what the plight of what's going on than you are. You just generally want to smash everything they tell you to fix.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. There is a lot of story in there if you're willing to look for it.
Oh yeah.
But there's an argument to be set in files and stuff like that, and extra contextual stuff.
I'll put a caveat on that. There's a lot of lore in this game. There's not so much story. It's lore that they are really laying in deep on. And you get to a lot of that once you get to actually teleport to hell and start figuring out like how this Doom Marine ends up in the sarcophagus and why he may or may not be in the sarcophagus.
I mean, the story is generally kind of, it's not played for a joke, but his reaction to the story is the joke.
Right.
which is a blasé attitude to as long as he gets to kill some demons again, because now he's out of his box now. He can do what he's meant to be doing. And you're just kind of getting in the way. And every time, what's his name? Optimus Prime. Sounds like
Hayden.
Optimus Prime. Yeah.
Hayden.
Problems.
Right,
Roll out.
He sound if they ever do an Optimus, another Optimus Prime, they should definitely get him to do it.
Yeah, but kind of he will tell you you specifically do not smash that whatever you do, and sure enough, 2 seconds later, that's exactly what you're doing.
Right.
That's kind of the crack, isn't it? It's kind of
and also like go here and activate this computer, and you're like, do I get to kill demons on the way there? Sure. All right, I'm on my way.
But in the lineage of, apart from Doom 3, which I never really particularly liked Doom 3, I always thought it was a misfire. But in the lineage of Doom, there's never been a story, and it's kind of obnoxious to put a story into Doom, I think. It's not meant to be that. Doom is meant to be like Doom and Doom 2, where kind of you have something at the beginning, and something at the end to tell you how it all played out, and in between you're just killing things.
Right.
That's what Doom is. It didn't annoy, as somebody who was really like a Doom purist, it didn't annoy me that they was trying to kind of get a story in, because they played with it nicely enough that kind of, that's a concession to what you couldn't do a game like Doom today as a full, there's no story.
Yeah.
Here's the scroll at the beginning and the scroll at the end, like Star Wars.
Right.
And that's it. You can't do that now. So I think they navigated that quite well.
And like they kind of sum that up like right at the beginning, where you first start talking to Hayden on the computer, and he's like, blah 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 blah. The demons have invaded, and I need you to help me do this. And your character's Doom guy's listening, and then as soon as he starts to get into like, and it's really, we can really help each other out on this and stuff like that, and then he just chucks the computer away and walks out the door, and then he does pretty much the same thing when you're going up the elevator, and of course you get the perfect late title card.
Jesus.
That like, and like, if you don't understand the tone of the game in like those first 20 minutes, then it's probably not going to click with you, but like the shotgun cock, like right at the moment,
cap on E1L1, the chink,
and then
if that doesn't get
you're
you
off,
and you're a Doom fan, then forget it.
Yeah,
you're probably not going to like it. Yeah,
basically. Yep. Yeah, and that's what you felt like they were doing with a lot of it, was like, hey, we know that the Doom guy is basically Master Chief, and we know that Halo has done the big alien story, and we know that you're really just here to shoot stuff, but let us have a little bit of fun here, and tell you a story, but also make you laugh at the same time, because it's so absurd that all of this is happening, and you're just kind of, your character is just kind of like so blasé about the whole thing. And from what I hear of Doom Eternal, they're definitely going down that same road with that. They're just kind of doubling down on it, which I think is a good thing, because those were some of the, at the end of the day, those are some of the big takeaways from Doom 2016 that kind of separated it a little bit from all of the other self-serious shooters that are out there. And then of course there's the whole Doomslayer lore and everything that they get into, which is actually, I'm not even joking about this, actually a little interesting. like the way they get into it and everything like that. I remember I was when it came out, somebody was like, you know, I really liked the game and everything like that, but I was really disappointed when you never actually got to fight Doomslayer. And I was like, well, you're Doomslayer. Because and then I realized that I was like, the way that it words it, it doesn't actually come out and say that you're this thing. It just kind of assumes.
It doesn't have to.
It just kind of assumes that you're going to connect everything together. Yeah. And I was like, I could totally see like how they could go down that road, because like it's almost presenting it as like, you know, this ultimate big bad that you're going to be fighting against. And it's like, no, my dude, you're the Doomslayer. You're
right.
You're the legend. But yeah, that is definitely didn't need to be there, but very appreciative that they went down that road. But what did need to be there was the shooting, which luckily, despite pretty much every reason for it to not have been good, with the whole like extremely cagey lead up to its release, like there was no public gameplay of this game released prior to release. There were like bits and pieces of rumors and like some leaked footage and stuff like that, but nobody knew going in like what this game was going to be before you could play it. And this was also a time when Bethesda was doing we're not sending out review codes, we want everybody to experience the game all at the same time, except for these people who you know, we pay to write good things about our games. So when this game hit and the campaign ended up being like the big talk of it, basically, was kind of surprising, and I think rightfully so, because as a first-person shooter in the modern context, it kind of took what was so great about not Doom 3 but the Dooms before, Doom 1 and 2, and
not Doom 3.
No, not Doom 3. Doom 3 was more of a horror game. It wasn't bad. It was a product of the time at which it came out. And maybe someday we'll go back to Doom 3 and have a deep
good luck with that. Let me know how it goes.
Yeah, okay. And yeah, so it took at the time when Doom and Doom 2 and Quake even gets wrapped up in that, and even a little bit Duke Nukem and stuff. These were all about like really fast first-person shooters. Like this is where the arena shooter came out of. So you're talking about like maximum frame rate, maximum speed, just throw as much stuff on screen as possible, and just go to town shooting everything. And we kind of went away from that for a long time, where the technology of the games and everything like that, the graphics fidelity, blah 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 blah, didn't allow for that many enemies to be on screen, for one thing. And we also went to a more slower type combat with when first person shooters first appeared on consoles with like Halo, and then later on Call of Duty, and stuff like that. So to have this kind of wrap around and be able to achieve this kind of like throwback to this original speed and franticness, but also incorporate these new elements into it, was like like surpassed any sort of expectation that you could have had for it, right? You're expecting it to kind of at best be an okay first person shooter, and for it to kind of like nail what it was going for so perfectly is I think one of the bigger surprises of the last few years anyway. Yeah, what did you, am I overstating this, or is that what you kind of came away from it too?
No, I'd say that's kind of how I feel too. The only thing I'd say is like coming back to it, it feels a little bit slower than I remembered.
Yes.
Like I went to hop back into it and I was like, okay, cool, this is gonna be fast. I'm kind of, because like I just jumped back into my file, which I'm probably a little bit past like halfway done, closer to the end.
Okay.
And I started going around and I was like, oh, this isn't as fast as I thought it was gonna be, but all right.
Yeah. So now, so you jumped into the middle of the game. The game definitely has a slow start, which is something I was noticing when at first I started a new game, and got a couple like three or so levels in, and I'm like, man, this does take a while to ramp up because you don't have a lot of guns, you don't have a lot of abilities, because this is a game where you are actually acquiring abilities along the way. Like there's a double jump in this game, for instance, and those types of mobility abilities really open up the combat and make it faster. But if you're coming into the middle of it, you probably have a lot of those unlocked already.
Yeah, I had a fair bit, and actually, like, I went in and I was like, wow, I actually got, like, quite a few points in here to use for, like, certain things, for, like, a couple weapon upgrades and a couple, like, skill point type deals.
Yeah, and so I'm not sure about that, because I was playing it and there's definitely slow moments. It's a game where it throws a lot at you. You take out the enemies, and then there's the kind of like moving toward the next combat arena, basically. And I know you were talking about this before, Leigh, that you weren't a big fan of the platforming challenges. Before we get to that, what did you feel about the combat and speed and everything like that?
I quite like the speed. I think it's a lot faster if you were starting from scratch and you don't have all of the perks you've had because you've done the room challenges and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's probably a lot faster because you're kind of you've got that stick and move thing going on that you always had from the originals. You know, you just keep fucking moving, just keep rotating around. 360 degrees obviously of it. So I think you notice the pace of it a lot more when you're beefed up from scratch, maybe, I guess. I think it's aged very well because we're in quite a kind of a very quickly consumable time at the moment, aren't we? Kind of things move so quickly, and it's like we're asking the question: has Doom aged? And it's only been 3 years. Right. But I think it's aged particularly well. I think it's quite nicely balanced. If you think about it, kind of, you think you start and it's like, I guess one Hell Knight doesn't seem so bad when you know you're going to be fighting 5 later,
right,
and stuff like that. I think it's aged. I think it's. It does have those problems, though, like you say. Like I don't like the platforming stuff. I don't mind the platforming stuff when you can't die from it. I can handle it then. It's when you're outside. I don't like those sort of things. I think that's a concession they didn't need.
Yeah.
Don't give me Falls of Death in a Doom game. What the hell is that?
Yeah.
You know, there's never been a thing, and now it's that wasn't necessary. That wasn't needed. I think gunplay was It's good, decent selection of weaponry. It's still quite interesting to use.
Yeah.
I'd like to don't know, but this is the problem that I think that the new one will solve. I do feel like once you've started unlocking all of your weaponry, it can fall into that thing where you're only really using 2 weapons.
Yeah, that was one thing I was going to say, is that the weapons, that as big of an arsenal as there is, I feel like there's almost too much. And it's very difficult, at least through one playthrough, to feel proficient with all of the weapons and know exactly when you're supposed to be taking them out.
Yeah. You could probably easily go through that whole game with the assault rifle and the micro missiles, the bottomless micro missiles, easily.
The what?
I would suggest the assault rifle with the unlock where you got, because it shoots the micro missiles that stick into things, and then you get the perk that unlocks bottomless, which means you can just fire them as much as you like.
See, I don't actually use the assault rifle at all.
Oh, you will now. This is micro missile heaven.
I just didn't like it very much. I used it. I'll use it for weakening up the small dudes in order to get the glory kills, but then I'll be on like the super shotgun like most of the time, and then I'll whip out like the chain gun to take down the bigger dudes, like if I get like a quad damage or something like that, because that'll just mow everything. Like that'll take down the Hell Knights and everything in like just a burst if you get the quad damage on. The assault rifle I used, like I had tried the micro missiles, and I for some reason just didn't like it very much, so I kept with the scope, so I could take dudes out from a distance.
If you go down that path of unlocking, you get to the bottom and it gives you kind of unlimited micro missiles. So you end up not really using it as a machine gun anymore. You're just using it as a micro rocket launcher. But it's kind of almost like a machine rocket launcher. So it's just dead.
Yeah.
But there are guns that you will kind of just happily never use, like the Gauss rifle. So what? You don't care.
The Gauss rifle, that's the sniper rifle?
Yeah.
You see, I use that too.
Oh, maybe I'm just bored of all the weapons. I don't know.
I don't know. I use, like, that is a killer for, I don't know what they're called. They're the big fat guys.
The Mancubus.
Yeah, they're killers for that thing. If you charge it up and blast them in the head, that'll take them out in like 2 shots. Like I don't use the rocket launcher very much, which is crazy when you're talking about Doom. You know what? Maybe I do use the weapons more than I think I do, because I use the plasma rifle a lot for the stun. You can stun them and then switch to, well, like I would stun the Mancubus, and then I would switch to the sniper rifle and take my shots. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I do use the weapons more than I think I do.
I guess, and about talking about that, what difficulty is everybody playing on?
The middle one. Hurt Me Plenty, I think?
Yeah, Hurt Me Plenty is kind of like your normal.
Yeah, that's what
super easy, normal.
That's what I started on, and like that's what I played through the first time I played through the game back when it came out. But I've found myself switching it up to ultra violence.
That's what I'm playing on, is ultra violent.
Because I wasn't finding it. I wouldn't say challenging. I was just finding it like it was like the encounters were over too quickly. And one thing that I like about the game is, for one, it's chapter based, so you can just jump into a chapter wherever you want. So I completed the game, so I have them all unlocked, so I can just hop in wherever I want to hop in. And then it tracks all of your progress within that chapter, so it'll like give you stats based on how quickly you completed that chapter that time, how many, so there's like secrets and stuff to find on the map, which I hope they do a better job with the map presentation in Doom Eternal, because I haven't really done a whole lot with the secrets and everything because of the way that the map's presented in this game.
That weird pseudo 3D thing.
Yeah, the pseudo 3D, but and I don't really have a problem with that. Like I think like Metroid Prime did a good job with the 3D map and stuff like that. I just think that the way you move and the way that the map is presented in this particular game is not very good. It's very confusing and hard to tell where everything is. But yeah, there are secrets to find. There's like you can collect little Doom guy dolls, and all sorts of like weapon caches and hidden upgrades and stuff like that. And it, from what I've seen of like the coverage of the new one, that game's gonna kind of double down on that, like actually give you side arenas to fight in for special items and stuff like that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So like we kind of glossed over like actually what the combat flow is. So like you go into an encounter, and like I said, these are like combat arenas that you hop into. It's not like you're not fighting a whole lot of enemies down corridors or stuff like that. You kind of walk into an open space, the enemies spawn in, and then you fight them. And the combat encounters consistently give you a bunch of smaller enemies as well as bigger, tougher enemies to focus your fire on. And the way that this all balances out is once you've done a certain amount of damage to an enemy, they go into like a stun state where they're flashing, and then you can perform what they call a glory kill on the enemy. And this is like, it's kind of like a finisher move where you kill them in some gruesome way. And what this does is, obviously it kills them, and you get the cool, like, violent thing, the kill that looks is all bloody and shit like that. The whole Mortal Kombat aesthetic. Whatever if that's what you're into. And then all of these items like ammo and health and stuff like that just spill out of them. And that's how you kind of manage this game, because you can't carry a whole lot of ammunition for your guns, and you have to commit to these glory kills in order to get ammunition for even your most basic weapons. But also, the bigger enemies will drop ammo for the more powerful weapons. And, they're harder to get into the stun state, as it were. So basically, your flow ends up being put some shots on the big main guy, go for this little guy, tear him apart, and refill your health and pick up some ammo. Focus back on the big guy. And then at this point, maybe you've weakened, like in crossfire and everything like that, you've weakened another little guy. You can glory kill that dude, refill your reserves. That's like the main way that you're getting health as well. Because you're getting hit all the time. Like this isn't a game where you're not going to take damage. And then eventually you're going to whittle down the big guy. And this isn't just the big guy that's sitting there doing nothing. Like the Hell Knights are like running around the map, jumping and slamming into the ground. All of this is happening in in a matter of seconds, and is happening over and over and over again throughout the combat encounter. And then you'll get the Hell Knight into his glory kill state. You tear him apart, and he'll just spill out all of this stuff. And and maybe that'll be enough to get you the ability to take out your chain gun and then start wiping the floor. And then you have the chainsaw. Like, oh, there's a chainsaw in this game. This is like a super advanced, like, futuristic Mars facility, but they still have a chainsaw, you know, to take down all those trees that you may need to cut down on Mars. And this is like a whole nother level of this. Kill the enemy and all sorts of resources fall out of him. This is like if you want an entire fountain of ammo and health to come spilling out of the enemies, and you know, there's a finite fuel for it and stuff like that, so you can't just constantly keep using it. But it's like just this constant like flow of the combat is what really pulls this together, because any individual part of this, like if you keep doing these glory kills, they're gonna get repetitive, right? But they happen so quickly, and because you get the basically reward from them, you're encouraged to keep doing them. And then you'll look at the menu after the mission and you realize that there's a bonus you can achieve if you perform all five types of glory kills on a certain type of enemy. So then you realize, oh wait, if I'm looking at the head, I perform one glory kill. If I look at the left arm, I perform this glory kill. When I look at the right arm, I perform the other glory kill. And some of these kills are just ridiculous. Like you'll take the imp's foot and crack it and smash it into his skull, or the mancubus, you like pull his entire you'll take his the thing out of his chest and then shove it into his throat, and it'll blow up in his face. There's some of them are just so absurd. Like you'll rip the horn off of the Hell Knight and you'll just crush it right into his own face. And yeah, I mean, like if there was only one animation, then it would probably get boring. But there's so many different ones that you can do, and they just happen so quickly. They're not like, you're talking about like a 2-second animation of your guy doing this, not like some long drawn out like pseudo cutscene or something like that. And yeah, that flow just goes throughout the entire game, and there's like they incorporate verticality into the levels, so there are many levels that you'll be able to jump up on and attack from above, but enemies will come flying up, they'll teleport up to you and stuff like that, so you're not like safe up there or anything like that. But it makes you look at the environment and approach it more than just like you would like even those old Doom games where you're just kind of floor level, looking straight ahead, whatever's in front of you, you're shooting at, and there's really no there really isn't a whole lot more to it than that, outside of like dodging bullets and stuff. Does that sum it up pretty well?
Pretty much. I do like kind of, obviously, because as much of a love letter as it is to do, it does change a lot of things to do without being kind of feeling out of place, like you say, locking you into one area every kind of 10-15 minutes or so. Because obviously in the old Doom, your health and your stuff like that, your memory pickup was based on literal pickups on the floor anyway. So
right, and those are still there. So there are still health pickups on the floor, but it's not nearly enough to get you through most of the combat encounters.
Yeah, but if the going got hot, you just bugger off to the beginning where you left the old pack. It doesn't let you do that, so it keeps it more moment to moment. I do like that. It makes it more intense. I don't find it a restriction. I find it quite kind of, it makes you improvise a lot more than you ever used to. when the old tactic was run to the beginning. I remember it was a black health chest or something. I like that it's more moment to moment like that. I don't feel that locking yourself in is restriction at all.
Yeah.
I think it just gets you more creative. It makes you want to use the verticality.
Yeah, and it also keeps you moving forward. In a way, like you're not like you said, like in something previous like that, you'd be going back to get that health thing. Whereas in this game, you're constantly being pushed forward, which kind of is counter intuitive to like the secrets and stuff that you can find, because you're not really inspired to poke around. You're kind of like really want to just keep moving forward, which is why I don't think they intended you to really go after those until you've completed it the first time.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that was
especially
more
like the secret rooms and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's more of an incentive to have you go back and revisit the levels rather than worry about getting 100% the first time you go through.
Yeah. I think the majority of the retro levels are, apart from the first one maybe, are incredibly difficult to fight. You're probably not going to find them the first time around.
Yeah.
So, because you have to find a switch, don't you? That is not necessarily next to the door that opens up to let you into it. So there's that whole thing going on where you're creating so much carnage you're not seeing there's a switch you just passed in the foundry or whatever.
Right, because in general there aren't a whole lot of switches.
No.
Yeah, you're not flipping a lot of switches. It's just like doors are opening up as soon as you've finished killing everything, and then you're moving on. So you're not not in this mindset of, oh, that's a switch. Like you don't even know what a switch looks like in this game because you interact with them so infrequently.
I like that like I say, just a retro thing. That is kind of obviously this is id. And Wolfenstein is Machine Games. But there's the connectivity that they both had the hidden retro rooms. I like that sort of weird crossover they have in Bethesda. They're not even the same team, but they still do the same kind of cute thing where it's like, oh look, it's the pixel.
Well, they did that in the original Rage too. The first Rage it had like some of those retro rooms. But they were harder to find than the ones in Wolfenstein.
True.
And then like so when this game came out, it had the multiplayer component with it, and that was actually developed by out of house, not at id, and because of the legacy of Doom and Quake and Quake Arena, which spawned like Unreal Tournament and stuff like that, there was actually more hype for the multiplayer than there was for the single player because nobody knew what the hell the single player was going to be. And when the game finally came out, that kind of, there was a beta that people played that kind of set the tone for that. I feel like the narrative flipped on it where everyone was like, holy crap, this single player game is awesome, but this multiplayer is okay, but it's not as like, it's not what you would expect from like the next Doom game or something like that. Like it didn't reinvent the wheel. Now, Derrick, you've played a considerable amount of the multiplayer. What is your take on what they are offering there?
Okay. So when the game first came out, there wasn't much to the multiplayer. It was just a couple maps, a couple different modes. Jump fast forward to 3 years now, and there is a lot there. There's a ton of different maps. There's a ton of different game modes. I kind of hopped into just kind of like the free-for-all type modes, and the one I found myself playing the most was one called Possession, where I believe it was like 8 people or so on a map, and it would turn 2 people into demons, and then the whole thing was for them to attack and kill all the other humans to turn everybody into demons. And that's kind of how you'd win. You'd either be the last surviving human, or everybody would get turned to a demon. And for it being this later in it, like connectivity to games was fast. Like I didn't wait around. There was no like 10, 15-minute waits. It was like maybe 3 minutes at the most one time to get into a match. A consecutive amount of people playing. Servers were stable. There was no like real rubber banding or any like big issues with it. It played smooth. So the multiplayer has definitely come a long way from what it was when it had launched.
Okay, well, that's good to hear.
Ooh.
And you were able to get into a match and everything like that?
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure with this revisit, I played more multiplayer than I did the actual game.
Okay.
Because I kind of like jumped in there and then I got addicted to that possession game and I just kept playing that. And the next thing I know, I've been in there for like 4 or 5 hours and I was like, damn.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I remember the consensus being that like I said, the multiplayer wasn't bad. It just wasn't, like especially compared to what the campaign ended up being and what you would expect from like a follow up to Doom. Didn't really hit all those buttons, but like it was more in line with what audiences would expect from a modern first-person shooter multiplayer rather than a throwback or something like that. So I didn't really get too much into it, but I do know that there were obviously like you and plenty of other people that did enjoy it. So that's good to hear that it's still going and they put some work into it. Interestingly, the next Doom Eternal, the multiplayer is going to be developed by id, so it'll be interested to see what that ends up being. They announced a little bit about it. They talked a little bit about it at their E3 presentation, but I guess they're going to be showing it more later on. So we'll see what that ends up being. Yeah, so I guess this was one of the reasons why I was excited about Rage, actually, was because I felt like we were going to be getting a taste of Doom Eternal before Doom Eternal came out, because the shooting and stuff looked and was all, being developed by id, and I feel like the shooting in Rage compared to this is a little bit more complicated because you have the abilities that you're managing and stuff like that, but it has that kind of kinetic, like bouncing from target to target kind of feel to it. It doesn't have the glory kills or anything like that, but you still have like the fodder enemies and then the main, the big bads that you're slowly picking away at. And yeah, the movement is pretty much as fast as Doom, maybe even a little bit faster than Doom was back then. So that makes me a little bit more excited for Doom Eternal, knowing that at least that will be good. And now they can focus on fine-tuning it and adding in, things where they think they need to add things. Yeah, I guess that's probably gonna wrap it up unless anybody has anything else to add.
I'd like to make just a quick little point that their 4K update patch has caused some issues, and I did run into some performance problems trying to play it like with a 4K TV and a PlayStation 4 Pro.
Yeah.
There's still like lots of pop in, like you'd see like the old graphic and then like the new graphic pop up. It was it was surprising that being this late into it that kind of didn't get smoothed out a little bit more.
Yeah, sounds like an id Tech game to me.
Yeah.
Does that sound consistent to the other versions? Do they all have those sort of problems?
I played mostly on PC, and no, the PC version doesn't have that problem. But I did pop into excuse me. I did pop into the Xbox version because it's currently on Game Pass. And I have an Xbox One X. I'm not playing at 4K. I'm playing at 1080p, and I didn't run into any of those issues when I was playing. I didn't play a lot. I only played the first couple of levels, but I didn't notice any graphical issues or frame rate or anything. It actually played pretty well. So I'm not sure exactly what combination of factors you need in order to have that happen. But yeah, that's a weird one. Because you would expect that to be kind of taken care of if it's that severe.
Yeah, and there's no like real way to tell like, hey, is this actually in it? Like, what did you do? Because there's like, you don't have like a 4K setting, or like you'll see in some games you want a 4K, do you want a 1080p?
Yeah.
You know, does it have HDR? Does it not? Like, there's none of that besides the settings you get from Doom itself.
This game came out before those new consoles were even announced, so the fact that there is even a patch for it is kind of
yeah, that is true too.
It wasn't required of them to do it. But I guess let's put it that way. And there's a lot of games that didn't put out any sort of enhanced version for the mid-step consoles.
Speaking of performance, has anybody played the Switch version?
No.
I'm still not quite sure, because that runs at like less than half of what the other versions do. Understandably, because obviously it's not as powerful a machine. But I'm not sure what the point is, because the whole thing of it is about speed, isn't it? And kind of the maximum, getting the maximum out of it. Which is like getting that 60 is key.
I mean, yes, normally I'd be like, oh yeah, 60, you gotta hit 60. But there is solid, consistent, all the time, 100% 30 is pretty good. Like, when you start to run into issues with something locked at 30 is when it starts to dip below that. That's where it really starts to be a disaster.
Did they fix that then? Because it did dip below 30, didn't it?
I don't know.
They were just I think people were just impressed it was on there. But yeah, it did dip below 30. Yeah, it wasn't locked.
I don't.
Didn't maintain it.
Yeah, locked and being able to maintain it aren't necessarily the same thing. Locked means it won't go above it. I don't know. I don't really know too much about the Switch version. I think it was probably more of like a test case to see what they could do. Same thing with Skyrim, but that's Skyrim, so it also sold 1 billion copies. That's because they put Wolfenstein on there too. I don't know.
But I think that's less reliant on the speed, though, isn't it? There's a lot of stealth and slower sections, I guess, in... What was it, 2 they put on there?
Yeah, the new Colossus, I believe they put on there. And the new one's going to be on there too. The Youngblood.
Youngblood. Which is soon, isn't it?
Yeah, next month. Or this month, July. We're in July.
Oh, wow.
I imagine we'll be looking at that at some point.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm probably going to pick it up. As long as the word is good.
I believe it's relatively cheap. I think it's like half price, I think.
It's like a 30 game. A 30 spot. $5 more than Cadence of Hyrule. So make your choice. Zelda or Wolfenstein. Another two series that have probably been around as long as each other. And we're talking about them here in 2019.
Wolfenstein. Yeah, Christ, because there was Wolfenstein before the 3D ones, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think Zelda is older than Wolfenstein, but only by a few years.
Yeah, I'm sure there was like 1983, 1984. There was some Wolfenstein games. Fun facts.
Yep, fun facts. It's good though, you know. But it's like yeah, okay, these games have been around forever, but they have consistently kind of reinvented themselves over time. It's not just like the same rehashed thing. Like Wolfenstein's completely changed the tone of it and everything like that. Doom's, the same fast shooting, but done with, it has its own modern twists on it. And Zelda has most recently probably the most famous reinvention of a long-running series. With Breath of the Wild.
It always seems so fresh.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's gonna wrap it up. We'll be back at some point with whatever our next replay game is, and someday I'm going to talk about Outer Wilds. Someday, but it's not going to be today, because I'm still working through it. But this is it's like a slow simmer game for me. It's like I'm slow burning it. I'm jumping in every once in a while, playing for a couple of hours and dipping back out. It's a good game for that. But I will have my thoughts on that at some point. I know we've got Youngblood coming up. Is there anything else short term that we're looking forward to?
Yes. Ultimate Alliance 3 and Dragon Quest Builders 2.
Okay.
Just Youngblood for me.
Okay. Weren't you interested in Ultimate Alliance?
That's after, isn't it? Just a little bit after.
Comes out the 12th, I think.
Oh, all right. Yeah, Oakmont Lights as well.
12th or 19th, I could be wrong.
Now that you get that Switch, right?
I'll be having a look. Yeah. There's
that Sea of Solitude game is supposed to come out on the 5th, and I haven't really heard anything about that. That was the EA indie game that they had last year. They talked a little bit about it this year. It's actually kind of not dissimilar to Sinking City, where you're sailing around on a boat in a sunken city. But it's a little bit more stylized, a little bit more less Cthulhu, I guess I would say. Yeah, that's all I got too. Stranger Things season 3 coming out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good for you. I'll watch it one day.
Yeah, I think you'd like it. I'm not sure. It has, that 80s horror vibe to it.
Actually, speaking of that, I just got the Dungeons and Dragons supplement for it.
Oh, okay.
So you can kind of run their story as a little mini session.
Cool.
Isn't there a game coming out for that soon as well to coincide with the?
Yeah, they're putting a game out. It's like a beat 'em up, I think.
Oh, I know there was a mobile game, but
yeah, that's coming out. I have that down for the 4th, July 4th. So the same day that season 3 is dropping on everything. So PC, Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox.
Before the storm, when August picks up, and you've got stuff like Control.
Yep,
and,
Control
and Madden and Remnant and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, that's Link's Awakening is coming out on the 8th, on the 20th rather. That's when stuff will pick up, and then it's kind of like constant from there on out. Up until next spring, pretty much, it seems like.
Yeah, there's a lot coming. I'm afraid.
Yeah, my wallet is not going to be happy.
No.
All right. So that's going to do it for today. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. And
thank you.
We'll be back next time.
Yep.
See you later.
Peace. Thank you for joining us in this very special episode of Voxel Viewpoint. If you'd like to hear or see more, please consider subscribing to us on your favorite podcast app, subscribing to us on YouTube, or visiting voxelvoice.com, where all of our great content comes together in one place. Also check out the Voxel Voice Facebook group, where you can join in on the discussion with a great, like-minded community.